Welcome back to the Book Trivia Podcast, the show where we uncover the most interesting, most strange, and most surprising stories behind your favourite books and the authors who wrote them. I'm Jess, and as always, I'm joined by the person who's in charge of keeping this crazy pod train on track, Rach.
Hi, Jess. How are you?
I'm good. If it's serious literary insight you're after, you might want to hop off at the next stop because on the Book Trivia pod train, we choose fun facts over anything highbrow. Today, we're heading down memory lane for a delightful, nostalgic horse and buggy ride that takes me right back to my childhood. Think rolling green hills, kindred spirits, and one of the most iconic redheads in literature. That's right. This episode, we're diving into Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery, a story that's been charming readers for over a century with its imagination and mischief. Just a quick, potentially distressing content note before we begin. This episode does include discussion of stillbirth and themes of depression and suicide. If those topics are difficult for you, please feel free to skip this episode or come back when you're in the right headspace. But before we hitch a ride on a train to Avonlea, let's warm up with a quick round of general book trivia. Want me to kick us off, Rach?
Yeah, you start us.
Awesome. First question for you. Which famous author poet married his 13-year-old cousin when he was 26?
13-year-old cousin, author, poet.
I've got a clue.
I'll need the clue.
Quoth the raven nevermore?
Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah.
Really? Oh, my goodness.
He had been living with his aunt and her daughter Virginia after his parents died, and many historians believe the relationship started more as a close protective bond before becoming romantic. By most accounts, they were deeply devoted to each other, but Virginia's early death, she was only 24 when she died from tuberculosis, had a huge impact on Poe, and it's often linked to the darker, more emotional themes in his later work. So there you go. What do you got for me, Rach?
In honour of our featured book this episode, I thought I would theme my questions on books about little girls. And you've already talked about little girls, so yeah. Not in the same way, but anyway. Jess, which 1913 book is about an orphaned 11-year-old girl who moves to Vermont to live with her strict Aunt Polly, and she transforms her solemn town by teaching everyone the glad game, which is finding something to be happy about in every situation? And I have a clue.
I might need the clue. Oh, I'm thinking Pollyanna, but I don't think that's right.
It's Pollyanna. The clue is she was played by Hayley Mills in the Disney film. Would that have...
Oh, I love Hayley Mills. I love The Parent Trap, again, showing my age that I'm not thinking of the Lindsay Lohan version of it. Okay, I have a question for you. I've been feeling a bit sad because we haven't heard much Greek mythology from you, Rach, that we usually do. So this one's themed as such. My question for you is, what is the name of the tragic Greek hero who brings destruction to Troy with his wrath and withdrawal from battle?
Achilles.
Of course, featured in the Iliad, and his heel is his weak point. Very good. I would be surprised if you didn't get that correct.
I did have to think. I haven't read any Greek literature for a while. Question 2 for you, Jess. Which fictional 9-year-old with a dead mother and missing father is red hair, freckled, unconventional, and superhumanly strong? She's able to lift her horse one-handed.
Is it Pippi Longstockings?
It is. Yeah, you didn't even need the clue.
Only because of the red hair, and I'm like, I only know Anne of Green Gables and Pippi Longstockings as the red hair.
There you go.
I love your themes. Okay.
You're smashing it this time.
Oh, don't say that. I don't know if I'll get the very last one, but we'll see. Yeah, don't jinx me. Okay. My last question, totally different from all the others. Which novel, recently made into a superb adaptation, reimagines the world of Pride and Prejudice from the perspective of the overlooked Bennet sister, Mary?
I've just finished watching this. So,
yes.
The TV show is called The Other Bennet Sister. Is the book called
that
too? Yeah, okay.
Correct.
So good.
I know. That's the reason why I wanted to bring it up, because if you'll recall back to our P&P episode, who did I love the most?
Mary. You loved Mary.
I loved Mary. And what did I say in the podcast? I said, oh my gosh, I wish that someone would give her a glow up. And this adaptation, I don't know if you'd call it a glow up, but I actually thought it was even better than a glow up because it was just so beautiful, true to her. They didn't change anything about it. They just explained why she did the things she did in P&P. And it was just, I loved it. And I've got a fun fact for you about the actual adaptation. It's going a bit off books and just related to the series. But in the adaptation, the character Hill, you know, the maid, she's played by Lucy Briers, who previously played Mary Bennett herself in the iconic 1995 BBC version of Pride and Prejudice. Do you love that?
Yeah. Because I know, was it you that told me that when she was in the 1995 version, they were saying, oh, put a bit more grease in her hair, make her look a bit more oily and spotty. And then I spotted her face again and I went, oh, there she is. She's being Hill, the housekeeper.
Yes, and isn't it cute that Hill is so nice to her in the adaptation?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And she's almost like her younger self prompting her to live a better life. So it's gorgeous. And I do need to say thank you to friend of the pod for Foggy from Reddit who gave me that little tidbit. So thank you very much for providing
for Foggy.
That.
We love you.
We do love you.
She was like her nice surrogate mum, Hill, but her actual mum in the TV show, I was trying to work out who it was for the whole first episode. And then I was like, oh.
Who was it?
It's Nessa from Gavin and Stacey.
Of course. Yes.
And I was like, I know that lady from somewhere.
It was well cast, I felt. Very well cast,
very
the whole
good
thing.
In that role.
And my favourite scene was when they're on the lake and the two boys are in the water.
With the two wet white shirts. Yeah, there's some good nods to the 1995.
I was cracking up.
I've also just watched a dramatization about Jane Austen's sister Cassandra. And so then I was getting the two shows mixed up because I've just been in the Austen universe so much.
All right.
Where were we up to? Question 3 for Jess. Okay,
yes,
Jess.
question 3.
Which 1964 book by Louise Fitzhugh features an 11-year-old New Yorker with a best friend named Sport and a nanny named Old Golly?
Oh, golly. This one I'm not going to get, I don't think.
I've got a clue for you.
Yeah.
It was turned into a movie in the 1990s and it starred Michelle Trachtenberg from Gossip Girl. I have another clue for you.
Okay.
She always carries a notebook around because she's an aspiring spy.
Spy. Oh, there's Harriet? Harriet the Spy? Is it Harriet the Spy?
Yeah, correct.
Oh, man, you really had to squeeze that one out of me.
That was one of my favourite books when I was that age.
Well, I've never read the books.
Well, maybe we should do that for this podcast. Well, now let's talk about this episode's featured book, which is Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery, a beloved childhood classic and a favourite of so many. This is also the spoiler warning. We are about to talk about the whole book, so if you haven't read it and don't want to be spoiled, you need to stop listening right now. Anne of Green Gables was first published in June 1908, and unusually for the time, it had not been serialised first. The story follows Anne Shirley, an 11-year-old orphan who goes to live with elderly siblings Matthew and Marilla Cuthbert in Avonlea, a fictional village on Prince Edward Island, Canada. The Cuthberts ask to adopt an orphan boy and are sent Anne by mistake but decide to keep her. The story then follows the next 5 or so years of Anne's life where she transforms from a mistake-prone little girl into a fully qualified teacher. Jess, can you start us off with a fact about the book?
Yes, I can, Rach. Did you know that Anne of Green Gables, while it wasn't serialized, it actually wasn't a standalone book either. It ended up being a series of 8 books written over 31 years. Did you know that?
I'm beginning to learn that as I was researching for this episode. Yeah.
The author L.M. Montgomery is said to have drawn her inspiration heavily from her own childhood experiences of growing up in rural Prince Edward Island, a Canadian province off the coast of Nova Scotia. And the idea for Anne actually came from a brief note she came across in her journals. It was about a couple who wanted to adopt a boy to help on their farm but were accidentally sent a girl instead, as you mentioned. It was just a tiny idea, but it clearly stuck with her because when she returned to it as an adult, she built an entire story around it.
Jess, was this the first time you'd read it, and did you like it?
Rach, this transported me back to my childhood. Not only did I read the books when I was a kid, I also vividly remember watching the 1985 Megan Follows adaptation whenever it was on TV, so multiple times because it was quite frequently on TV. And I was absolutely delighted to get reacquainted with the whole Avonlea gang. It's an easy 5 out of 5 stars for me. What about you, Rach? Had you read it before and did you like it?
Well, now, this was my first reading of Anne. It's actually taken me this episode for me to get around to reading it. So I'm really glad that I've finally read it. I think Matthew and Marilla might be some of my favourite book characters ever.
Yeah.
Because
Matthew,
when you
well now.
Yeah, well now. I love
He's
him.
gorgeous.
I love him.
I still cried at the bit where he dies. I do it every single time.
Yeah. But it tore my heart out and stomped all over it. But when you get to my age, you develop the ability to read on more than one level at once. So I was trying to just keep to my inner child reading it, but my external grumpy old middle-aged lady was observing the mechanics of the story and the character building and the foreshadowing, and I could tell Marilla's getting sore eyes and Matthew's got something wrong with the heart, and I knew that I was going to be emotionally manipulated as a reader, and I didn't like that because I would have liked to have read it when I was a kid and just been utterly heartbroken. But yes, I very much enjoyed the whole experience of reading it, and I can definitely see why it's so beloved and such a classic. The only problem I had with your 5-star childhood favourite book, Jess, is that the version I read didn't have a map of Avonlea, and I could not for the life of me work out how Rachel Lynn lived on the road in and out of Avonlea, and she could see everyone coming in and out, and you could see Barry's Pond or the Lake of Shining Waters on the way in. And then Avonlea was round the back, but they live next door
it's so
to the
big.
And I couldn't understand it. But then I did look up a map on the internet, and I sort of got my bearings. So yeah, it really hurt my brain.
It didn't even cross my mind, but I guess because I had been so used to watching the TV show, it was already in my mind
how it's all laid out,
where everything was. Yeah. Let's start this section, as we always do, with a potted history of the author herself. LM stands for Lucy Maud Montgomery, and she was born in 1874. Mother died of tuberculosis when she was only 21 months old, which is very sad. And her father moved west and left her in the care of her grandparents. By all accounts, she had a very lonely childhood, so poor Lucy. In fact, it's said she resorted to creating imaginary friends, one of whom was called Katie Maurice, just like how Anne talks to Katie in the mirror as a child. And like all of our talented female writers we've covered, or at least it seems so, Lucy had an early ambition for writing, and her first published piece was a poem in a newspaper at age 15, so very industrious. We do love the early starters here, don't we? During her late teens into her early 20s, she studied and trained as a teacher, although she didn't actually enjoy being a teacher so much that at the same time she continued to write and have pieces published in magazines. Again, similar to Anne. It sounds like she was a bit of a catch because during this time she is said to have had multiple suitors, and she had at least 2 clear marriage proposals that she rejected outright, both because she didn't truly love them, and even a snooty teacher who tried to woo her with his thoughts on predestination and other dry points of theology. It's kind of gross. It seems like so much of her life seems to parallel things that happen in the books because remember the teacher loves Prissy in the book as well.
Yep.
Anyway, finally in 1897 she received a marriage proposal from a student in French River called Edwin Simpson. But when she writes about why she accepted his proposal, it sounds like it was more because she felt her prospects were poor and she needed financial protection. And it actually proved to be a bad decision for her because she came to dislike Simpson, who she thought was self-centered and vain to the point that she felt nauseous in his presence. Doesn't bode well for a future marriage. And while she was still engaged to Simpson, she had a brief but intense emotional relationship with a man called Herman Laird, I think is how it's pronounced, a local man who she met while boarding on Prince Edward Island and whom she later described as the man she loved the most in her life.
Oh,
Here's where it gets a bit messy though, Rach. For Lucy and her man. Get it? It wasn't just a little crush. It was a full-blown emotional thing. And by all accounts, it sounds like it got pretty intense. So I'm thinking heavy kissing, sneaking around type energy, although she drew the line with anything sexual because of her religious beliefs. Eventually, family pressure and social expectations won and she was forced to end it. And at the same time, she also broke off her engagement to Edwin. So go girl, at least she got out of that. But then, just to make it extra tragic, Herman died not long after, and even years later she described him as the one that got away. During this period, while living with her grandmother on Prince Edward Island, she began writing Anne of Green Gables. The manuscript was rejected multiple times, and she famously stuffed it into a hat box for about a year before giving it one final try, and that submission is the one that made it into a global hit. Finally, in 1908, at the age of 34, Anne of Green Gables was published. And I'll leave it to you, Rach, to talk about its success because I've got even more juicy gossip to get into about Lucy's life after that.
well now. I love Matthew. Well now. The book was an immediate success, and according to a letter sent to a pen pal from Montgomery, of the 66 reviews she had received, 60 were kind and flattering beyond her highest expectations. 2 were a mixture of praise and blame, and 2 were contemptuous and 2 positively harsh. So that's how her 66 reviews went. Pretty good, actually.
What was the blame?
Praise and blame. I don't know. She's writing a letter to a friend. I don't know what she means.
Okay,
I don't know.
Sorry, continue.
But the New York Times gave it one of the less flattering reviews. I don't know which of the 6 it falls into. But despite that, the book sold 19,000 copies in the first 5 months, which was huge at the time.
Take that, New York Times.
Yeah, it's gone on to be one of the most reprinted books of all times. And according to her journals, Montgomery was quite shocked at how instantly popular the book was and how quickly it was going into those reprinting runs. Quite soon after it was a massive hit, her publishers were hounding her for more information about who she was and what the inspiration for the book was so that they could provide all that information to the people who were asking and who were interested and curious about the book and the author. And Jess, here we are 120 years later. We're still interested and curious about who she is and the inspiration for the book. Some trivia here, because that book was so instantly popular, Montgomery's original handwritten manuscript, which I believe is called a holograph, was identified pretty early on as an item of interest. She knew it was important. So it's actually still around. It's been preserved by the Confederation Centre of the Arts in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island. And you can go there and see it, or you can get online and view digital images of that original manuscript online. So I did. And
well, that's cool.
It's really cool to see the handwriting. But unfortunately, the typescript that was sent to the publisher, that's been lost.
Well, I think the handwritten is more authentic anyway, right?
Yeah, it's pretty cool that it's still there and you can still see it.
Was she a neat handwriter or was it messy?
You can read the writing, but it's old-fashioned running writing.
Well, after Anne of Green Gables was published and Lucy became internationally famous overnight, she quickly followed it up with sequels, and in 1911, 3 years later, she married a man called Ewan MacDonald. Ewan was a Presbyterian minister who she met when she was living and working in Ontario. At the time, she was deeply involved in church life and their paths crossed because of that religious community. She would have seen Ewan as a sensible match after the scandal of Herman because he was the same religion, and so she moved into the church manse with him. She would have thought she was gaining stability and a respectable life, but unfortunately, what she actually got was a husband who was struggling with serious mental illness. Ewan suffered from severe depression and religious anxiety. At one point, he even believed he was destined for hell. And despite her husband's illness, Lucy and Ewan still managed to have babies. So quite a lot of stress in her life. In 1912, she gave birth to Chester. However, there was more tragedy in store for her because in 1914, her second son, Hugh, was stillborn. And at the time, stillbirth wasn't openly talked about, and she was just expected to carry on quietly. And she proceeded to have a third son called Stuart, born the very next year in 1915.
Goodness.
On the outside, she had this picture-perfect life, husband, kids, successful career, but behind the scenes she was dealing with grief, a struggling marriage, and basically carrying the entire household on her own. All of this really started to take a toll on Lucy's mental health. She struggled with ongoing depression for most of her life, often writing in her journals about feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, and trapped by her circumstances. It sounds like writing became a way of coping. Honestly, I find it amazing that she was able to create such a bright, imaginative world while privately dealing with a much heavier reality. So kudos to you, Lucy. What an amazing woman.
Amazing. Well, now, Jess, did you know that although the book was published in the Edwardian era, 1908, it's actually set in the late Victorian era? The events of the book begin in 1876, and Montgomery herself was born in 1874. So, according to my calculations, she's made the character of Anne about 9 years older than she actually was. But interestingly, most of the screen adaptations have made Anne Edwardian rather than late Victorian. And that's exactly how I've always pictured Anne. I always think of her in Edwardian costume. So there you go.
And now I'm sorry to close out this section with something a little sad, but we couldn't talk about Lucy's life without also talking a little bit about how she died. On April 24, 1942, Lucy Maud Montgomery was found dead in her home in Toronto. The official cause of death was recorded as a coronary thrombosis, so basically a heart attack. Years later, Montgomery's granddaughter, Katie MacDonald Butler, wrote an essay in the Globe and Mail revealing that the Montgomery family believed she'd actually died by suicide. MacDonald Butler said she decided to share the family secret to help reduce the stigma on mental health issues. As I mentioned, Montgomery suffered from depression throughout her whole life. Her husband also suffered from depression throughout their marriage. There was also a note found by her bedside in which she wrote about feeling like she was losing control of her mind and that her situation had become too much to endure, which has led some people to interpret it as a possible suicide note. That said, not everyone agrees. It's contended whether it was either suicide or heart issue. Some historians believe the note may have just been a part of a journal entry or something else entirely, and that her death could still have been from natural causes. So ultimately, it's never been definitively proven, but it does reflect just how much she was struggling in her later years, don't you think?
Yeah, it's a mystery. Well, now let's talk themes. So we could talk about imagination, belonging, the transformative power of love and friendship. We could talk about stealthy prototype feminist message, or talk about books which emphasize the importance of education and highlight that learning is much more interesting than being boy crazy. Or we could talk about some of the less discussed themes, like how at one point during reading this, I did actually wonder if this book might be one of the earliest examples of product placement, because I really wouldn't be surprised to learn that Montgomery had been paid by the Canadian Department of Agriculture to stealthily promote apples and plums in her books. And I did wonder whether she'd been paid off by the Office of Canadian Tourism to promote Prince Edward Island's beauty. She's like an olden day influencer, Jess. But on a more serious note, I think my favourite theme throughout was Anne's mishaps, because reading about a character who makes blunders portrays them as very likeable and relatable. And Anne managed to 1, get Diana Barry maggot drunk. 2, make a liniment flavoured cake. Yeah. 2, make a liniment flavoured cake. 3, jump on the bed of a sleeping old lady in the middle of the night. 4, get stuck on yes. 4, get stuck on a bridge pylon due to a sinking boat. And 5, dye her hair green. So all of those very much reminded me of those Bridget Jones-esque funny mistakes, and they really endeared her to me as a reader. So speaking of that, Jess, did you like in the book where Anne says to Marilla, "But have you ever noticed one encouraging thing about me, Marilla? I never make the same mistake twice"?
Yes, it was so sweet. I actually loved their relationship, and I loved how Marilla started off very stern and then softened towards her as well. I think it was really, really sweet, that relationship. Well, I've talked a bit about Lucy's upbringing, and there are many parallels between her and Anne's life. Obviously, I mentioned she'd had imaginary friends, she had become a teacher, so it's no surprise that Anne of Green Gables was heavily inspired by her own experiences. But did you also know she based Anne's look on a real person, Rach?
Oh, I was wondering if you were going to say she had red hair. Did Lucy have red hair?
No, she didn't have red hair. No, so the real person, she actually kept a photograph of Evelyn Nesbit, who was this really famous model and actress at the time, and she used her as a kind of visual inspiration for Anne. I looked her up online. Evelyn is a total stunner. I'm not sure I'd necessarily see her as a perfect match for Anne in my imagination, but you can kind of see where Lucy was going with her, because Evelyn does have a slightly whimsical kind of dreamy look about her, which is definitely Anne when she's off in her flights of fancy. And interestingly, as you mentioned about the red hair, there's no mention of Montgomery explaining why she gave Anne red hair. But at the same time, red hair wasn't actually seen as desirable. So many people think it was just a way to make Anne feel more relatable, highlighting how she sees herself as different and a bit out of place. So there you go.
I see. Well, now, one of the most delicious parts of the story is where Matthew, my favourite, is sitting in the corner quietly taking off his boots, and he actually notices for the first time in his life that all the girls have puff sleeves except Anne, and then he goes through his own personal version of hell trying to get Anne a puff sleeve dress.
He's
Poor
so
Matthew.
gorgeous.
So I've got some trivia on two topics here. Anne of Green Gables is so universally liked that it's a huge driver of tourism to Prince Edward Island, and fans flock to see the real Green Gables house, which is a farm that was once owned by Anne's relatives, and it's now run as a tourist attraction. And there's several real-life locations featured in the book, like Lover's Lane, which is a real place that Montgomery used to walk along. So because of all this tourism, many of Montgomery's artifacts have been preserved. I mentioned her original manuscript, but also preserved her scrapbooks from when she lived in Cavendish at the time she was planning and writing Anne. And contained in her scrapbooks is a picture of a Victorian dress with huge puffed sleeves. Yeah, and it's thought to have been the inspiration for the description of the beautiful brown Gloria dress that Matthew gives to Anne for Christmas in the book.
She would have loved Princess Di's wedding dress with the big puffy sleeves.
Yeah, by the Emmanuels. She would have loved it. So for the book's 100th anniversary, the dress in the picture, they actually commissioned someone to create a version of it in real life, and they put it on display in the museum on Prince Edward Island. And I checked the pictures online, and I can confirm the sleeves are enormous. They're just these massive things shaped like bells. So just exactly how Anne would have wanted them.
Oh, I love it. Well, I mentioned previously that Lucy drew heavily from her own life. Let's talk through some of the other characters' inspiration. Marilla and Matthew are probably the most obvious ones. They're widely believed to be based on Lucy Maud Montgomery's grandparents who raised her.
I see.
No surprises there. And here's an extra tidbit about Matthew. Well now, apparently readers gave Montgomery grief over his death. Let's be honest, as I said, I cried. Montgomery confessed that she later regretted writing it, and if she had a chance to rewrite it, she'd actually give Matthew a few more years before she dropped the bombshell on us.
Hashtag justice for Matthew.
Then you've got Diana, who represents that steady, loyal best friend. She's thought to be inspired by Lucy's own childhood friendships. And then characters like Mrs. Rachel Lynde definitely feel like they've come straight out of small town life. That very outspoken, knows everyone's business type that every community seems to have. And then we come to Gilbert. He's a bit different. There's no confirmed real life version of him, but he's likely a mix of a few people Lucy knew. He's kind of what you'd hope someone would grow into. Smart, loyal, and able to admit when he's wrong eventually. So while Anne might be the most personal character, the whole world of Avonlea feels like Lucy's real life.
Lovely. Well now, it's time for me to ask you silly questions, Jess. So, in honor of Anne, I've stolen the first question directly from Anne in the book. So, question 1, which would you rather be if you had the choice? Divinely beautiful, dazzlingly clever, or angelically good?
Well, definitely not angelically good. Was it divinely clever or dazzlingly beautiful? Oh,
It was
I
divinely
think
beautiful or dazzlingly clever.
I think clever, but only just because I'm pretty vain and I would love to be beautiful. What about you?
Angelically good. I think I'm with you. Get rid of that one. It's between the
Yeah.
other two. Dazzlingly clever or divinely beautiful. I think, yeah, I'm with you. I'll go dazzlingly clever. Okay,
Yeah.
question 2. Would you rather eat a liniment flavored cake or dye your hair green and have to cut off all your hair?
Oh, the thing is, I hate eating gross stuff. And
But you hate
I don't
being
want to go with
bald
me.
as well.
Yeah. There's that. There's that. Do I have to eat the whole cake? Or do like
I
a piece?
suppose
Like
just a
what's
slice. A slice is enough.
all right. Give me the slice. I'll wash it down with a nice cup of English breakfast tea. What about you, Rach?
You should wash it down with some of that wine that she got Diana drunk
The
on.
current one.
Yeah, some currant wine. I can't cut my hair because I look like Bob Hawke, so I'd have to eat the cake. And I don't know what liniment is, but I'm thinking it's like tiger balm or deep heat or something.
Yeah, something bleachy.
Yeah. Okay, question 3. Would you rather lose all your money and instantly die of a heart attack or find out you can prevent yourself from going blind, but you can never read again?
Oh my gosh. This is awful.
I know. This came from Lucy Maud, not from me. This is what she does to her
too
characters.
hard. I think I'm gonna just die. Well, yeah. I think I would be so sad if I couldn't read. It gives me so much
Yeah.
pleasure in life.
I think I might be with you again. I think you open your bank statement, $0 in the bank, you drop down dead, boom, gone.
We like to crowd out this next segment with weird and wonderful facts that people don't know. And one of the most surprising things about Anne of Green Gables I found out as I was doing the research is that it's actually a massive hit in Japan.
Japan.
Yes. It's known there as Red-Haired Anne, and it even became part of the school curriculum in Japan from the 1950s onwards. So for decades, generations of Japanese students grew up reading it. And it didn't just stay as a book, Rach. In 1979, there was a hugely popular anime adaptation that introduced Anne to an even wider audience, and that version is still beloved to this day. Since then, it's inspired fan communities, school readings, and even tourism, with many Japanese visitors traveling to Prince Edward Island, just as you mentioned, specifically to see Green Gables. Some even go full Anne-core and dress up when they visit, which is totally iconic. I love that.
That's Encore. I want to do Encore.
Yeah, Encore. They even have a nursing school in Japan nicknamed the School of Green Gables, which is a sister school to the University of Prince Edward Island School of Nursing. And here's the craziest bit. Are you ready?
Mm.
Did you know, Rach, that Japan loved Anne so much they literally built a full replica of Avonlea, like an entire Anne of Green Gables theme park in the 1990s called Canadian World?
Really?
Yeah.
I want to go there.
It had a full replica of Green Gables house and actors, performances and themed buildings, but I'm not sure if you want to go there anymore because it eventually went bankrupt and now it basically exists as this quiet, slightly eerie, almost abandoned Anne village in the middle of Hokkaido.
Oh, I'd still go there. It'd be funny.
Will you dress up Anne Core when you go?
I'm not sure. Well, now, Jess, did you know that due to something written in Montgomery's journals, the internet claims that the day that Montgomery actually put pen to paper and began writing Anne of Green Gables was the same day she and her future husband began to court. So Montgomery was working in the kitchen of her grandmother's house on the novel. She started off writing Mrs. Rachel Lynde and the, iconic first page. And that kitchen also functioned as the post office in Cavendish. And she wrote in her journal that after she'd starting off writing about Mrs. Lynde and her home, Ewan walked in for his mail.
That is wild.
Yeah, because she'd planned and planned and planned the book for ages, and she knew exactly all the beats it was going to hit. And then that was the afternoon she sat down to start writing the actual book. Another little piece of trivia, the original handwritten manuscript has a bit of a curiosity to it, because some of the pages Montgomery used when she was writing were the blank back pages of previous pieces of her writing. So when you're going to look at the manuscript online, the front-facing page will be Anne of Green Gables, and then you'll turn the page over and it's parts of completely different bits and pieces of other stories by Montgomery.
Not confusing at all.
Yeah, they call them the verso pages.
Love it. I'm going to have to look this up. It sounds cool.
I'll send you the link.
Well, now, it's not just Japan that loves Anne. Jap-Anne. Get it? Sorry. Anyway, Anne of Green Gables. Anne of Green Gables is so popular, it has been featured on Canadian postage stamps, Rach.
Canadian postage stamps.
You'll also find the name Green Gables popping up all over the world, from apartment buildings to inns, because people love that cozy, nostalgic feel the story represents. It's become shorthand for charm, comfort, and a simpler way of life. And like you said, in Canada, there are even dedicated museums and preserved sites celebrating Lucy Montgomery and her work, including locations in Prince Edward Island where you can visit the real-life settings that inspired the book.
Well, now, let's talk politics. You would have noticed in the book that they talk about the Grits and the Tories. And I mistakenly thought that because Anne of Green Gables was published 118 years ago, that those parties wouldn't still be around today. But they are still nicknames for the two major parties in Canadian politics. The Grits are the Liberal Party, which is supposed to be centre-left, socially progressive, and the Tories are the Conservative parties, which is supposed to be more to the right, which is confusing because liberal in Australia means more right-wing. But in the book, Matthew votes Tories because his forebears also voted that way. Rachel Lynde is a Grit supporter, and there's a passage in the book where Matthew thinks he might have to start voting Grits because it's taking so long for Anne's examination results to be published in the paper, and he thinks it's to do with him voting Tory. Here's some trivia for you. One of Canada's most recent Prime Ministers, Justin Trudeau, was in the Liberal Party, so therefore he's a Grit. And so that actually means that Katy Perry and Rachel Lynde have something in common, and it's not kissing girls.
They're dating.
Well, they're both Grits supporters.
Yeah, but it's so weird it's even called Grits. Grit sounds to me like oats. What's the actual reason they're called Grits? Do you know? They're just gritty?
I did see online that they're supposed to, stick to the cause and try to get things done like a bit of sandpaper. They're tough.
Anne of Green Gables has had a surprisingly long and varied life on screen and stage. The very first adaptation was a 1919 silent film, which is now considered lost. No copies exist today. It's probably a good thing, though, because Lucy is said to have hated that version. She thought Anne was portrayed as being too sweet, not to mention the fact that they set it in America instead of Prince Edward Island. Then there was a 1934 film version, which was a bit more faithful to the story, although I still think Lucy Maud Montgomery wasn't particularly impressed with that one either. I think you've got something about that for us later on, Rach. More recently, there's Anne with an E on Netflix, which took a darker, more modern approach and it introduced the story to a whole new generation. I actually posted a poll in the Anne of Green Gables subreddit last week, and I asked everyone to vote on their favourite adaptation. Guess what won the poll with a staggering 440 out of 511 votes, Rach?
I'm going to guess the 1985 TV miniseries because that's the one everyone on the internet loves. Yeah.
Correct. That's the one I grew up watching and the one I really want to focus on in terms of fun facts in just a moment. But before we do, did you watch any of the adaptations, Rach?
So the only one I could find to watch was the one with Martin Sheen as Matthew, and I had already read on the internet that that one isn't good
Yeah.
because Martin
Up
Sheen is all
down.
wrong for Matthew. So I didn't want that in my head. And the 1985 one was recommended, and I've reserved it at the library, but it's still on reserve, and I haven't been able to
Oh,
watch it before we're recording this. So devastated.
you're in for
Mm.
a treat.
Well, now, did you know that Anne of Green Gables, the musical, was written in 1965 and it's Canada's longest running musical because it was performed annually from 1965 to 2019, but then it had to miss 2 years in 2020 and 2021.
COVID.
But yeah, COVID. But it's now back running every 2 years, and it was actually even staged in Adelaide in 2018.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
Road trip.
Yeah, long way from Prince Edward Island to Adelaide.
Well, as I mentioned, the 1985 TV miniseries with Megan Follows is the Anne I grew up with, and I was so pumped to watch it after I'd finished my reread of the book. But Rach, much to my dismay, I was surprised at how hard it is actually to get a hold of. You mentioned you're waiting at the library. Usually you'd think you can find it on some streaming service or YouTube even as a backup. I kid you not, I spent at least a half an hour going through every streaming app I have on our TV. None of them had anything but the 2016 movie version, which I think is the one you mentioned. I was in the depths of despair. But then I happened to be over at my mum's house, and I was lucky because my sister Em actually had the original DVDs. But guess what, Rach? It doesn't end
What?
there because I don't actually have a DVD player anymore. Yeah. So then my husband had to gather up all our electronic devices, our PS2, our Xbox 360 that have been gathering dust in a cupboard for who knows how long, not to mention sort through 1,000 old cables just to get it set up for me. But all that said, I did in fact get to watch it after all that, and I hope that the hardcore Anne fans appreciate the efforts I've gone to see this 1985 series again. And we've got some facts that we can swap. So shall I start, Rach?
Yes, you start. Yep.
Yeah. So my first one is the orphanage director, Mrs. Cadbury, was actually played by Megan Follows' mother.
Her real life mother.
Yeah, her real life mother.
That is funny. Okay, my fact for you, Jess. Jonathan Crombie, who played Gilbert Blythe, was the son of Shirley Crombie, but his mum Shirley's middle name is Anne, not with an E. So he's the real life son of a Shirley Anne, and he was playing opposite Anne Shirley,
And
obviously.
Shirley, I love it. My fact for you, Katharine Hepburn was originally approached to play Marilla Cuthbert. She declined, but suggested her great niece, Shyla Grant, for the role of Anne. Shyla auditioned for and was cast, but as Diana, not Anne.
Wow. I can imagine Katharine Hepburn as Marilla. That makes sense. She'd be good casting.
No.
Yes.
The Marilla Cuthbert.
I need to see the show.
Yeah, you watch it and you'll be like, no way, no one else but her can play.
Well, we'll see. Did you know that there was actually a legal dispute between the producer of the miniseries, Kevin Sullivan, and Montgomery's heirs? Ultimately, the Canadian courts agreed with the heirs that Sullivan had withheld contractually promised profits from the first two films in the series. So they took him to
Oh, I
court
did
and
not
won.
know that.
Mm.
I'm glad they won. And also, loved the first two, Anne and the sequel, but the rest of them were awful, so he deserved to give some money back just for the awful renditions of the final ones he did. My next fact is actually around Megan Follows' audition. So she came highly recommended, but she was quickly dismissed by Kevin Sullivan. And then for her second audition, after a turbulent morning leading up to her audition, she was actually quite frantic, and that made a better impression. And she was given the role, maybe because she was bringing a bit more Anne frantic energy. And she actually beat out 3,000 girls for the role of Anne Shirley. And she's my Anne Shirley for sure. So I love her.
3,000 girls. Wow. Both parts of the film were among the highest rated dramas to ever air on Canadian television network, with ratings of around 5 million viewers.
Wow. I believe
That's
it.
big in Canada. That's a lot.
Yeah. Isn't that kind of the whole population?
Yeah, well, in 1985 it probably was.
Yeah.
Well, now, did you know that the star of the 1934 film, not to be confused with that lost 1919 film, it starred an actress who was born Dawn Paris, and she used the stage name Dawn O'Day. However, after filming Anne of Green Gables, Dawn changed both her legal and her stage names to Anne Shirley, and she kept the name Anne Shirley for the rest of her life. Did you know that, Jess?
Yes, I did, because it's one of my true or falses.
Oh, damn it. Well, now let's start wrapping up this episode with a round of true or false. I'm going to start us off. So, Jess, true or false? Montgomery considered Laura and Gertrude as possible names before deciding on Diana.
Oh, is this you trying to trick me? I'm going to say true just because I like the idea.
It's true. She was almost a Laura or a Gertrude.
No.
But she's a Diana.
Yeah, she's definitely a Diana. My true or false for you, Rach. Lucy was named after her grandmother and Queen Victoria's daughter. True or false?
Lucy. I don't think Queen Victoria had a daughter called Lucy. Did she? False.
Am I trying to trick you? It is true. So
Ooh.
Lucy Maud Montgomery was named after her grandmother Lucy McNeil, and it's widely believed that the name Maud may have been inspired by Princess Louise, one of Queen Victoria's daughters, who was a popular royal figure at the time.
I don't understand how Louise becomes Maud, but anyway, sure. Sure. Jess, true or false? Anne arrives in Avonlea wearing a too-short dress made of cheap wincey. It's in a yellowish grey colour from a bolt of fabric given to the orphanage. True or false, Jess? Wincey is what you and I would call flannelette.
I think I'm going to go true.
It is true. Yeah, I was
two
looking
for
it
two
up.
for once.
Yeah.
True or false, Rach? Lucy wrote a book in 1926 called The Blue Castle, which was considered scandalous at the time and banned.
True.
It is true and kind of false.
Like your other question about Louise Maud.
Hey, that is correct. It's true she wrote The Blue Castle, and it was one of her few adult novels. It definitely pushed boundaries at the time with themes like an unwed mother and a main character rejecting social and religious expectations, but it wasn't officially banned. It was considered quite controversial, though, and especially coming from the author of Anne of Green Gables.
Okay. Jess, my final one for you. True or false? The pen Montgomery used to write the original manuscript was the type that need to be dipped in an inkwell every few lines for fresh ink.
I mean, yeah, I'm assuming yes. True.
It is true.
Well, she wasn't going to be writing with the ballpoint.
Yeah, but she could have had one of those calligraphy ones with the ink cartridges in the spine, maybe.
Oh, fancy. My last true or false for you, I'm laughing because you already know the answer to it. The star of the 1934 film adaptation, actress Dawn Eveline Paris, ended up using Anne Shirley as her stage name for the rest of her career. Is that true or false, Rach? What do you think?
I'm wondering if this is a trick question. True. I think it's true.
It is true. You didn't mention this in your part, but so she changed it. But apparently, the reason for her changing it is debated. Some say she loved the role, and others said it was actually a PR stunt that the studio had actually asked her to change her name for. But either way, she kept it for the rest of her life. So yeah, we'll never know.
Studio PR stunts. That's like a flashback to our episode on the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo.
Yeah. A bit of Hollywood. Rach, you already talked about what a smash hit Anne was when it was first published, but it's actually had real impact over time. By the mid-20th century, it had become a true classic of children's literature, not just because it's a charming story, but because it's one of those books people just don't read once. They read twice or 3 times or more. They come back to it at different stages of their life. I have to say, I low-key felt the same way when I reread it all these years later as well. So it's no surprise that over its lifetime, it's never been out of print. I think you already mentioned that. It's sold over 30 million copies worldwide, and it's been translated into more than 40 languages, which is pretty impressive for a story set in such a small rural corner of Canada.
Wow. Okay, Jess, this isn't exactly a fact, but now, previously, we've done episodes on Sally Hepworth's Mad Mabel, and we've done a book by Margaret Atwood. And both Mad Mabel and Atwood have a connection to Anne of Green Gables. In Mad Mabel, Mabel adores Anne of Green Gables, the book, and she yearns for a bosom friend
does.
like
Yes.
Diana. So it was actually nice for me to
I had
finally
forgotten about
understand
that.
reference. Yeah.
Yes.
And sidebar, the internet very much suspects queer subtext between Anne and Diana. A lot of the internet. They're all over it. That's the Mad Mabel connection. And the Margaret Atwood connection, she's obviously a fellow famous Canadian author, and she wrote an essay celebrating Anne of Green Gables for its 100th anniversary.
Margaret Atwood.
Yeah.
That is wild because she's all about the dystopian. I know how much you loved Oryx and Craig, and she's building those types of worlds. And then she's a massive fan of Anne of Green Gables. That is wild.
I didn't say she's a massive fan. I said she wrote an essay celebrating its 100th anniversary. In the essay, she does write about her love of reading it as a child, so she is a fan. She read it again when her daughter was the right age. They read it together. And, of course, Literary Margaret says that the book is not actually about Anne's transformation. It's about Marilla's, which is funny because you said that at the beginning of the episode. So you and Margaret, the brains.
Okay, yeah.
I have to secretly agree with both of you on that one. The Marilla transformation is beautiful. Matthew and Marilla were the heart and soul of this book for
100%.
me. Yeah. What did you think about the ending, Jess?
I loved it. I love the ending. The only thing I was bummed about is that obviously her and Gilbert don't actually get together in the end. But if you read the next one or you watch the sequel, they do. Spoiler alert.
Well, they're friends by the end of the book, which is nice.
Yeah. And that turns into a love in the end. So loved it. What about you?
Well, now, I thought the ending was excellent. The whole book really built towards that ending beautifully. And it's so...
Except for Matthew.
Montgomery really pulled it off, though, because as a reader, I experienced all the emotion she planned for me to experience. And she twisted that knife with Anne and Matthew. They walk the cows home up Lover's Lane the night before he dies, and Matthew says to her, well, now, I guess it wasn't a boy that took the Avery Scholarship, was it? It was a girl, my girl that I'm proud of. He is definitely one of my favourite book characters I've ever come across. That one did really hurt. Then the final bits with Anne deciding to study long distance and stay with Marilla and Gilbert, giving her the school and then becoming friends. All of that was really satisfying too. It's a really great ending, and I think the ending is probably a lot of what makes the book such a beloved classic.
With that, we close out another episode of the Book Trivia Podcast. I hope you're all leaving with a slightly stronger appreciation for kindred spirits, dramatic apologies, and the importance of spelling your name with an E, if you feel strongly about it. Rach, do you want to give us a teaser for the book we're covering next episode?
Yes. Next time, we are going to read a science fiction book with an insecure adolescent who is troubled by her missing father. What's your teaser, Jess?
My teaser is a tad more abstract. Space and time begin to bend, reality feels uncertain, and an adventure unfolds that's as unsettling as it is wondrous.
Interesting. Thank you so much for listening. And if you like this episode, please like and subscribe. And only if you liked it, rate and review our podcast on whichever podcasting app you use, or better still, tell a friend to listen. For more book trivia, find us at booktriviapodcast.com, and you can also follow us on Reddit, YouTube, and Substack, where we are Book Trivia Podcast. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Bye.